Hello, Ron. Welcome to our new episode, INK&BLOOD, and this is our sixth episode. And in this episode, we are going to discuss Syria.
Erdogan reached out to Assad and said, "Let's make up for the let bygones be bygones, and let's open a new chapter, start a new page." Is that possible? What has happened in the last 13 years? I thought we should unpack this in this episode.
Certainly. What has happened? All of a sudden, Erdogan starts begging Assad, okay, Mr. Assad, come to table. I can come to your country. You can come to my country, or we can meet in third country. What has happened? What made Erdogan wake up and realize and invite and wanted to be friends with Assad again? Go ahead, please.
Well, he hoped to topple Assad. He wanted to get rid of him, but Assad dug in. Assad got help from Iran. Assad got help from from the Russia. Assad has help from Hezbollah in Lebanon. Assad is not a pushover, it looks like. So Erdogan, practical politician that he is, wants to make up. To be honest with you, initially I thought that was a good thing. Peace in the Middle East is better than war. Definitely, Middle East has a lot of pain, has a lot of suffering, has a lot of people hurting. But I'm not so sure if it's possible, because both Erdogan and Assad are cutthroats. Assad has killed 500,000 people in the last 13 years. Erdogan has has played a major role in a coup. Erdogan allowed a lot of foreign fighters to cross his border into Syria. And there are Kurds who have been basically autonomous, free for the last 12 years. And they have US on their side. And so there are a lot of players. And Erdogan, wants to have peace. And I hope he has his peace. But I don't know if he can meet the demands of Assad. What do you think?
Do you really think that Erdogan cares about peace? I mean, just today, and he was threatening to invade Israel. Now, I don't think this guy has anything to do with peace. I think we need to understand, why does he need to do this? Certainly doesn't care about the peace. Certainly he doesn't care about how many people die or not. He only cares about, I think he has his own priorities, his own power, his own money first, on top of the hierarchy. And maybe the preferences of Turkey, his own party that's controlling Turkey. Then maybe the interest of Turkey in the fourth place. And then it goes on. I think we need to understand what has changed that may be necessitate for him, for his personal gain, his party gain, his vision in the region, that forced him to reckon with Syria and Assad regime. So first of all, I think this peace discourse that you have been advocating, I think is not a right wording or not right discourse when it comes to dealing with Assad and Erdogan. I think we need to ask the question of why Erdogan needed to make peace with Assad. I think there are 2-3 things that we can discuss. One is the domestic needs, and there has been riot against the Syrians, and it appears that there are a group of people that they actually provoke people toward Syrian refugees, and then Erdogan may feel that he needed to do something, but I don't think that's the case, because Syrian will remain. Whether Erdogan make peace with Assad or not, Syrians will not go anywhere. So I don't think that would be a cause. I think we need to look at the regional developments and the international development that may think Erdogan again and wanted to peace with Assad. What do you think?
Well, I have a question for you then.
Sure.
If Erdogan could get every wish that he has in Syria, what do you think those wishes would be? What does he want from Assad?
Well, first of all, blockade. Number one, blockade Syria Kurdish access to the Mediterranean
Okay.
coast. Okay, that's number one. I think he achieved it one way or other. And second, push Americans out with the fear that Americans will help Kurds to establish an autonomous region. Second. And the third, I think, get rid of the autonomous Kurdish region. I think those three are his top priorities when it comes to his demand from Assad. And then Assad would, of course, ask in favor of this. And if, let's say, can Assad really deliver these demands? That's the question.
Well, I mean, U.S. is not going to listen to the Kurds or listen to the Assad or listen to Erdogan. U.S. has an interest to stay there because U.S. was threatened, as well as European countries were threatened by ISIS fighters. So U.S. is there until that threat is gone. So I don't think U.S. is like a bargaining chip. Neither side can push U.S. out. Then the issue of the autonomous region, Rojava. Can Assad and Erdogan together crush this experiment called Rojava? I think as long as U.S. is there, they cannot. U.S. I mean, nobody wants to commit suicide for the sake of somebody else. So this area called, controlled by Syrian Democratic Forces, Eastern Euphrates, will stay there as long as the Muslim Abdi would love to stay there as long as he can, and have an autonomous region like Iraqi Kurdistan. And if the U.S. were to pull out, then I think Assad and Erdogan might have like something to talk about. So U.S. is still there, and so I don't know if there's if there are grounds for optimism, if you will.
What about Donald Trump? If the Donald Trump is going to be elected, I think that's the calculation that Erdogan, perhaps Assad too, is being putting on, and then they were hoping that Donald Trump is advocating that we should not do a nation building and we should not wage a war. And he's been so bragging about that he has never engaged a war, and during his time period that Trump did not wage a war. Therefore, they are calculating that, well, if Trump is elected, and the United States may withdraw from this region. What do you think?
Well, the U.S. hasn't elected Trump yet. I mean, autocracies are notoriously known as undependable. So Erdogan has lost his credibility because he acts like an autocrat. Bashar al-Assad is a dictator, and he has lost his credibility. If U.S. voters were to elect Donald Trump and he were to pull out, I mean, I think Rojava could become a casualty of that withdrawal. But I also don't think Erdogan Bashar al-Assad, his country has been ruined. 12 million people have been uprooted. 6 million people have left the country. So it's not like Bashar al-Assad is looking forward to embracing Erdogan. Erdogan occupies 10% of Syria. Will Erdogan leave? I mean, I don't think Assad will sign a dotted line unless Erdogan says, okay, I will leave. And I think there are also grounds for Assad to cooperate with the Kurds, to work out their differences with the Kurds. The differences between Damascus and the Kurds are a lot less complicated than the differences between Damascus and Ankara. Don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of, especially if you consider the history between the Kurds and Assad, yes, Assad regime or the father or son was simply alienating the Kurds in the region, and they were not issuing even the ID cards to the Kurds, and they were claiming that those Kurds who came from Turkey and does not belong to Syria, and many Kurds did not have any ID card even before Assad regime. But at the same time, it was the same Assad family who used the PKK, now the predecessors of the Rojava experiment over there, against Turkey. And they harbored Abdullah Öcalan for tens of years in Damascus and Bekaa Valley. So they have this relationship between the PKK and its ideological backing and the Assad regime. And don't forget, at the same time, this PKK organization is also now receiving support from United States for certainly tactical reasons against the threat of ISIS, but it also supports from Russia, and Russia still does not recognize the PKK as a terror organization. I believe, as far as I know, that they have an office in Moscow, as far as I know. So Russia is also friendlier with the Kurds and Rojava experiment, the leaders of the Rojava right now. So when it comes to Assad thinking, would I prefer Kurds over Ankara? Certainly. And would Russia, if Americans are withdrawal, would Russia have an influence over the Kurds over there? Yes, absolutely. Would Russia wanted to see Rojava, autonomous Rojava, under the influence of Russia and backed by Assad regime? I think so too. So only obstacle over there is to force United States to get out. I think Iran on the one side and Russia on the other side, and now Turkey, by normalizing its relations with Assad, would also join the camp to push United States out of Syria. So if especially if the large Arab tribes in the south, where the Rojava experiment is being tested, wanted to join Assad and with the support of Turkey and limit the area of the Kurds where they operate, then would really United States have a reason to stay there?
Well, I mean, U.S. makes its own calculations. It has agents on the ground. It has intelligence. It gathers intelligence. I don't think U.S. policymakers think the ISIS threat is gone. I mean, you can get rid of the ISIS as a country, but the ideology of ISIS, the followers of Baghdadi or the followers of his followers, they still hold on to that idea. That hasn't been addressed. The reason the war broke out in Syria was because of the Sunnis didn't have a voice in Damascus. I mean, 11% of the population is Alawite, and they have been in power since 1970s, basically. In the army, top generals were Alawites, and the lower ranking officers were Sunni. And then this war broke out, and then Assad thought he could control it, but it was bigger than he thought it was going to be. But I think if let's say Assad last 13 years, he's whether we like him or not, he's the leader of that country, and it looks like he's gonna stay there, and he has half of his country has been destroyed. I don't know if he will be willing to cooperate with Erdogan to attack Rojava, and let's say they do. I mean, that has ramifications inside Turkey too, because there are Kurds inside Turkey. I mean, it's not like this Rojava is alone. There are Kurds in Iraq, there are Kurds in Iran, there are Kurds in Turkey. I mean, of course, I have no way of knowing how they're going to act, but if they were smart, they would say, let's calm the situation. We have had enough war. Let's invest in peace. Let's invest in construction. Let's invest in the future. And, close to 4 million refugees and the Syrians who are inside Turkey. I mean, the Turkish population, as I know, some of them are not happy with their presence. They have been attacked in Kayseri. A little boy was killed in Antalya. I mean, it's good that, so far the extremists have been stopped from attacking these poor, hapless refugees. But yeah, I mean, of course, I cannot, count on Erdogan or Assad to make right policy, to make good policy for the region overall. But the tragedy of Syria should compel them to calm the situation down. But if Erdogan wants to get rid of Rojava with the help of Assad, I think he's going to underwrite, the check for another war, if you will, for more violence. And this time it could even spread inside Turkey. I mean, at the end of the day, the problems of Syria are not that different from the problems of Turkey. The flashpoints that were inside Turkey, were inside Syria, they also exist a little bit differently, also exist inside Turkey too. So overall, I was hopeful when he made the statement that he's willing to talk to Assad. But if he's not going to withdraw from Syria, and if he wants to get rid of Rojava, I don't think neither Assad nor Erdogan can climb that mountain. I think they're going to invite more trouble, and they might, and we might see more wars and more uprisings and more refugees. And I don't think Europe wants to have refugees. I think Europe would love to see these people, sit down, calm the situation. That's how I see it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what about the Assad? Yes, the Assad certainly has his own red lines that ask Turkey to withdraw its military presence and do not support the terrorists that Assad calls those the opposition
Free Syrian army, as well as the Rojava.
Yeah, and all others are terrorists. So I think that's not going to happen. But what other factors that force Assad to come to table? First of all, I think it appears that Putin also wants Assad to come to table. Also, the role of Israel. And Israel has been bombing Syria every once in a while, especially after the Hamas terrorist attack in Israel. I mean, shouldn't we consider that Assad himself is actually cornered in this situation where, on the one hand, Israel has been bombing and Putin demands something. Now, Erdogan and Assad also on the same page when it comes to anti-Israeli rhetoric, and they may join forces to stop Israeli aggression or somehow stop Israel. So, and Iran also would be happy to see that Assad and Erdogan normalize its relationship, and especially if possible, join forces against Israel. Wouldn't that be a possibility?
I don't think. The Erdogan, in spite of his bluster, knows that the U.S. is right next to Israel, and if Turkey, let's say, decides to attack Israel, as Erdogan yesterday said he would, Turkey is looking for trouble. There is a quote attributed to Euripides, who says, when gods want to punish somebody, they first make them mad. And Erdogan is, in my opinion, moving towards that trash line.
I think I should say inshallah to that. Go ahead.
So I would say that also applied to Milosevic. He acted mad, and then at the end of the day, he found himself in prison. Both Erdogan, in my opinion, both Erdogan and Assad deserve to be in prison, deserve to pay for their crimes. But we live in an imperfect world, and they're leading nations there. They're leading. Assad is leading his people. Erdogan is leading the people inside Turkey. I don't think even Iran wants to get involved in a major war with Israel and US. So they might want to hurt each other. They might want to harass each other. But then, as the Algerian diplomat Ibrahimi said, civil wars don't follow a schedule. They just sometimes pop up, or wars just sometimes emerge out of thin air. I don't think we are beyond the tensions, whether they're inside Israel, between Israel and Lebanon, between Turkey and Syria. But yeah, I mean, the whole region could erupt in major wars. And I'm not so sure if the ground beneath the feet of Erdogan is so solid, or the ground beneath the feet of Assad is so solid. They could bluster, but they're on very slippery grounds, and they could hurt themselves. And I don't think Europe wants that. You know, if Turkey, let's say, let's say, agrees with Assad to get rid of Rojava, and then all of a sudden there will be major demonstrations in Diyarbakir, in Nusaybin, in major Kurdish cities.
Do you think that's really possible? I mean, we haven't seen any major demonstrations in Diyarbakir or not. And maybe last election only in one. And I think Erdogan's security apparatus really found a way to simply enter those types of.
No. I mean, I think, in 2014, when Erdogan said Kobani is about to fall and is going to fall, and then basically, was happy that it may, like he was basically expressing a hope that Islamic fighters were going to take it over. But then Salahuddin Demirtas and his friends, basically said we need to protest. And as you know, there were major protests. Close to 50 people died. I wouldn't rule out, if Turkish troops, let's say for the sake of argument, Turkish army and Syrian army decide to jointly attack Rojava, I wouldn't rule out major protests in Istanbul, in Ankara, in Brussels, in Berlin, in Diyarbakir, in Nusaybin, even in Iraqi Kurdistan. So I don't think it's in the best interest of Erdogan, but Erdogan, doesn't follow best interests of his country. He follows the best interests, as you said, of his ego, the best interests of his party, the best interests of his ideology. And he doesn't like Alawites. Ahmed Dawood used to call them Nusaybis, a pejorative term. He doesn't like the Rojava, but we don't choose our neighbors. God does.
Well, let me ask you a question. I mean, I think it is a little bit provocative, but Erdogan always calculates that he put his bet on the winners. And when it comes to winners in the region, especially after the war in Ukraine, it appears that Putin is going to win. At least this is how Erdogan calculates. And especially the war in Gaza simply diminished the moral high ground for the West. And the West really was not able, despite the fact that they all join forces. And especially this is how Erdogan sees, and they couldn't even put end of Hamas. And therefore, I think he calculates that, well, the Putin and the Iranian side is going to be the winner of this conflict. And therefore, he is changing his direction when it comes to Syria. What do you think about this analysis? Do you think that Putin will win, first of all? Do you think that Erdogan is, if he's calculating on this, Erdogan is right on his calculation?
Well, I think Putin, if let's say Ukraine offers him a ceasefire or a cessation of hostilities, the way, for example, it took place between South Korea and North Korea, 70 years ago, Putin wants to hold on to what he has, and he might actually go for peace, a semblance of peace. I think Ukraine so far thinks it can get the land back, and U.S. and NATO are, supporting it. Yes, it looks like Russia has the upper hand, but Russia has also suffered. I don't know if I would count on, or I would say that Putin and Assad and Iran has won and they are on a winning streak. I would say, Israel has cards to play. U.S. has always said, I'm going to support Israel if Israeli existence is threatened. And I think U.S., I don't know. I don't think Putin wants to have a nuclear war with the U.S. For the sake of Israel or Hamas or for the sake of Ukraine. So far I think they're avoiding that. Both U.S. and Russia are not going to go nuclear because of Ukraine. But going back to Middle East, Erdogan, he thought he could win. He thought, as you said, he would pray in the Umayyad Mosque, and he didn't. So far, he hasn't. and Assad is there. Assad is not going anywhere. If anything, Assad is consolidating his power. It may not be robust economy. Syria may not be a robust economy, but North Korea is not a robust economy, and it's still there. And Russia is not a robust economy, and it's still there. Iran, could be a more robust economy, but it's still there. So there is a balance of power there. There is Israel, there is U.S., and there are these countries. And I wouldn't say that Erdogan's is winning. I would say he actually lost relative to Syria. He destroyed that country, and people don't forget. People have memories. People have, a lot of people suffered. And even these groups that he has armed, these Muslim groups, if Syria, let's say, with the help of Iran and with the help of Russia and with the help of Hezbollah, pushes them out, where are they going to go? They can only go to Turkey. There's no other address. And if they go inside Turkey and they're disappointed, and they let's say they blame Erdogan for their miseries. They say, well, Erdogan said, go ahead, fight Assad, and now he's not supporting us. It could have a boomerang effect. They could start attacking Turks. Turkish is have terrorist attacks inside Turkey. I'm not predicting that. All I'm saying is, if Erdogan wants to have his peace, the way I see it, he has to accommodate these groups in Idlib. He has to accommodate these groups in Afrin. He has to accommodate these groups in Grespi, in Serikaniye. And he has to leave 10% of Syria alone. He cannot have his cake and eat it too. He cannot have his peace with staying inside Syria. No Arab League member will accept that.
I'm not sure about Arab League's members.
They may not have the power to kick Turkey out, but it will be a sore point in their relations. The Arabs that I know, I don't think they're going to let Turkey get away with that, with 10% of Syrian territory. The Golan Heights, the Israeli took over in 1967. It's still an issue. Only Trump recognized it as a part of Israel. During his time in the office at the White House. So, occupations are 19th century politics. 21st century politics is not occupations.
It's coming back again, Connie. And Russia occupied Georgia. Nothing happened. Russia occupied Ukraine. Nothing happened. Turkey occupied Syria, Cyprus. Nothing happened. Turkey, all other regions. Only maybe Saddam tried to occupy Kuwait. I think it was a big mistake for him. But those, limited occupation, I think West would be happy. I think Arab leagues would be happy too, as long as Erdogan contains those jihadists in Syria.
Well, we'll see. I think. I don't think war pays. I think war makes a country poorer. I think. I think we are only, paving the way for future fighters, future terrorism we'll see. I mean, we'll see what, I guess, in the days, in the months, in the week, I mean, in the years to come, we'll see if it's possible. I mean, I don't see Assad leaving Damascus, and Erdogan also looks like he wants to stay there forever. So we'll see.
Do you think that Assad and Erdogan is going to meet anytime soon?
Well, I mean, the meeting, Erdogan, I mean, Assad is hurting. I mean, according to a Washington Post article, in 2011, Syrian economy gross domestic product was $252 billion. In 2024, it's $9 billion. So the country is poor. It's you know, so Assad would love to have peace with Turkey and have access to, you know, construction material, to you know, all kinds of, if you want to build a country up, you need material, you need access to the world, you need access to Europe. And so, but I also, you know, you and I, we held a couple of discussion groups on X Spaces, and a lot of people seem to think, a lot of people from Turkey who took part in our discussions seem to think that Erdogan is there to stay, is not going to leave 10% of Syria alone. And if that's the case, there is no peace. Erdogan can only dream about peace. I think even when he goes away, there will be conflict. Or maybe, you know, if let's say there's a war and Erdogan is toppled and Assad is toppled, the new leadership takes over, maybe there will be peace. You know, Milosevic left, there was peace in the Balkans. So maybe we need new leaders. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. All right. Thank you, Connie.
Thank you.
See you next week.
See you next week.